think we did too, actually. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I was waiting for an interpreter to get here, but in the interest of time, we'll go ahead. So the purpose of this morning's workshop is to have you all have a chance to get to know the Unified Mental Health Team at Harper Park, kind of give you a little bit of purpose as to why we even have a Unified Mental Health Team, and then give you all of the resources that we can offer you, your kids, and the school community. So I'm Ashley Harper, I'm the lead counselor here, and I'm also the counselor for any student receiving special education services in the building. And as people come up to present their slides, they're going to introduce themselves, so I won't go around and do that first. So a couple of statistics. Over the past few years, the rate of suicidality, meaning kids thinking about suicide, depression, anxiety, has risen nationwide, and Loudoun County is not excluded from that. So it is the second leading cause of death in kids 10 to 19, and that's from 2 years ago at the CDC. And then as you can see, the percentage of high school students who report feeling sad or hopeless and the number who display suicidal behaviors have increased in the past few years. So Loudoun County, along with most other counties in Virginia and nationwide, started to decide we need to do something to prevent this. We don't want this to take kids' lives. We want people to be able to feel supported before they get to a point where they feel sad and hopeless. So they started to develop unified mental health teams in the high schools. And what that meant was fully staffing psychologists and social workers, adding school counselors and other support people that started in high school, because that's where the statistics really are the highest. And then middle schools were right after that. So we became fully staffed really this year, although last year we were supposed to, but we finally got our psychologists here full time. So we have a full unified mental health team here at Harper Park. And one big component of that is your school counselors. And is Mr. Missick in here?
No, but I can jump in.
Okay, I can do it.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter. So we have 4 here, and what that means is we have 1 per grade level, and then I have kids in every grade level who are receiving special education services. And we all, just so you know, because we wanted to give you some background, is what makes us qualified to work with your kids. School counselors are required to have master's degrees, so we all have master's degrees. We're licensed by the state of Virginia. We have to go through the process every 5 years to kind of prove our worth, and it's not an easy process. There's lots of staff development, lots of continuing education that we have to do. We're trained in a lot of different things, but this is just some of them: suicide prevention, crisis management, recognizing child abuse and neglect. We're mandated reporters, which means if we suspect child abuse or neglect, we have to make a report to CPS, and then CPS determines whether or not they move forward with that. Any school employee is actually mandated reporter, cafeteria worker, custodian, librarian, and of course counselors too. Restorative practices is a big thing that we do here, and Ms. Weatherford, our psychologist, will talk a little bit more about that to explain what that is, but it's a school-wide process where we help kids to repair harm done between each other, sometimes with a staff member, rather than automatically jumping to a big discipline. There's a process where we try to help them work it out and figure out how that's not going to happen again, rather than just kicking a kid out and having them come back and do the same thing again. So restorative practices is big across the county, and we use it a lot here. Between the 4 of us, we have over 60 years of school counseling experience. So we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of changes in the system, in the kids, in the needs of the families, and hopefully that makes us a little bit more available and ready to be like, oh yeah, I can do that. You know, we know exactly what we need to do and work with you all in your unique situations. Okay. We do small counseling groups, and that can be on any topic. So right now, your kids are filling out needs assessments for us. I also sent one out to parents for you, if you felt like it, to fill one out, so you can fill us in on your family or your kids, anything that they may need. So from those needs assessments, we analyze that, and if we have a group of kids, let's say in 7th grade, who are particularly dealing with feeling anxious or social anxiety, then we would possibly group them together in a small counseling group with permission. You always have to sign permission as a parent, and support them that way. Groups meet on a weekly basis, and they can be anywhere from 8 weeks long to sometimes all year long, depending on the need of the group. We do classroom lessons. We focus on bullying prevention during the fall. So in 6th grade, you're going to have the basics of bullying. What is bullying? What's the difference between bullying and someone just being mean? How do you handle it? What are your options? and where are your supports in school when you're experiencing something like that, and how to stand up for a friend if you see something like that happening to somebody else. In 7th grade, the county mandates that we cover sexual harassment. So we talk about what is that, what does that mean, how do you prevent that, what do you do if it's happening to you. So that's what happens in 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, it's more the online cyberbullying technology piece. So we tackle that. We also try to throw in for the 8th graders a little bit more of the emotional consequences and depression and things like that that happen when kids are online. Most bullying, to be honest, now happens through technology. It's not a lot of the old school, you know, at the playground kind of thing, pushing each other around. So that is a big part of 8th grade, although we deal with it at every grade level. We work with all the kids on career exploration, looking at colleges and post-high school options. That happens at every grade level in different forms. And we also work with kids individually, of course. That's probably 80 to 90% of our day is kids coming to the door saying, I need you, or sending us an online request form, I need to see you. So that is really a lot of what we do. Our doors are kind of a revolving line of kids. We do conduct suicide screenings. We're trained on suicide screenings. Here at Harper Park, we choose as a department to do them in tandem. So if I have one of my students that needs a suicide screening, I will always reach out to one of my colleagues and say, hey, do you have time to do this with me? For several reasons. 2 sets of eyes and ears can pick up on things better than one, and also to cover us, because should it be a very serious situation, we need to check each other and make sure we're doing everything correct and that the response was the correct response. We also sit in on the threat assessment teams. So those are done by administrators, but a counselor is always on the team. And a threat assessment is done when someone makes a threat, even if it is, I'm gonna go punch you in the face. From something like that all the way up to, I'm gonna kill him kind of thing. So there is a process, there is paperwork, and there is a whole team that decides whether or not it was a credible threat and what we're gonna do with that. So we're part of that team as well. And then we help, we collaborate with a lot of outside agencies, which you'll hear in a little bit, and we can help connect parents to those too. And then school psychologist, Ms. Weatherford. Oh, you're up.
Hi, I am your school psychologist. How are you? I'm just going to go over, I guess, briefly my background and just why I'm here. This is actually my 21st year in the county. I know, I started when I was very young. But I've been here 5 years. Before here, I was in the Ashburn area. I spent the majority of my time at a high school and then 2 elementary. So I've seen all over the map. And in fact, I was at Stonebridge, and myself and 2 other colleagues developed the Signs of Suicide program that the high schools present every year. And this year, what we're really working on in our building is, can you just switch to the next slide for me for a second? We're going to work on more of the resiliency of our children. So we're actually bringing in the sources of strength, which is really a pro-social, trying to find the strengths of our children rather than just looking at the deficits. So instead of band-aiding it, we want to really give them those skills to see where their strengths are and how those strengths can carry out throughout their lives. So that's what we're going to be implementing this year, so look out for that. You'll get some information about that. But what I do, really my primary job is to conduct comprehensive psychological evaluations. When I started in this county 21 years ago, that was my prime role. And it really has changed and morphed throughout the years. I actually have a bachelor's from Virginia Tech, and then I have a master's in education specialist from Radford University in school psychology. We're very much a behavior modification program with a clinical background. So with that, I come in and I can do individual group therapy. We do counseling, functional behavioral assessments, suicide screenings, threat assessments, which they mentioned. And I'm really here to provide support for staff and for parents on the emotional needs of their children, the educational needs, and behavioral needs. I'm a member of the BIT team, which is our behavior intervention team, obviously child study, IEPs, our unified mental health, and our advisory. And we do advisory here every week, and our unified mental health team really presents a lot of the material that we want our children to know through that advisory. And in that advisory, if your children have even talked about it, we're doing circles, which is part of that restorative practice that Ms. Harper mentioned. Is we're starting every advisory with a circle, and these circles are to build community within our classrooms. We want our kids to feel like they are connected with the adults in this building. So that is how we're really reaching out for those, to really make sure that our kids are connected. Because last year, we believed our kids were connected, but they were telling us otherwise. So we're really trying to listen to them and really promote a cohesiveness within the building. And I am a restorative practice lead in Leesburg, and I'm a trainer, so I not only train staff in circles and conferences, but also the restorative language, which will be another parent coffee at some point, because we did it last year. And that's it, I think. I mean, I could go on, but yeah, that's my main job.
All right, hi, I am Ashley Olson. I'm the school social worker here. This is my second year at Harper Park. So school social workers in general, we are the link between the home, thank you, the community and the school, so that's primarily what my role is. I have a bachelor's in social work and a master's in clinical social work, and I'm also certified through the Virginia State Board of Education. I'm a certified child and adolescent trauma professional, which just means I understand the effects of trauma and how that affects our kids and how to frame my language around trauma and all of that fun stuff. My previous experience was in outpatient therapy and home-based therapy. And social workers are trained in the areas of family and child development, counseling, interviewing, mental health, case management, child advocacy, and systems management. So my approach to everything that I do is from a systems lens with the kids, so that's why I think about the community, their place in the school, and their family. So even when I'm working on something pretty specific or individual like anxiety, I take a systems approach with it. So this is more of what we do specifically in Loudoun County. One of my main roles is to prepare the sociocultural assessment that goes along with the special education process. So if your child is in that process being tested with Mrs. Weatherford, the psychologist, my role is to meet with you, the parent, and get your kid's entire history, their background, their development all the way from birth to where they are now, how they interact with adults and with their peers. And so that's a really special thing for me to do because it's a way to get the parent's voice in the eligibility process. And so it's a great time for me to meet with you and really learn, because you're the expert on your kid, and so that's nice to be able to pull that into that process. I also provide special education individual and group counseling, so if that's written into a child's IEP, then I or Mrs. Weatherford could do that counseling. I facilitate other counseling groups just for any of our kids, like Mrs. Harper explained from the needs assessments that we do, and so that's a really big part of my job, and we only use evidence-based curriculum, and I really enjoy getting in groups and learning how kids work in those groups, and it's a great way for them to build those social skills. And I provide case management for our homebound, home-based, McKinney-Vento, and foster care students. So those kids typically need more support outside of the school, so I'm able to support them in that way.
What's McKinney-Vento?
I was going to ask
McKinney-Vento are homeless students or students that don't have permanent housing, so maybe they're hopping from one house to another, and so we're able to give them extra resources that they probably don't have. And I also participate in RP circles and conferences as a facilitator. I'm on all of those teams, our Pupil Services Student Support Team, this team, MTSS, lots of different teams, lots of meetings, but it's all to support your kids. I serve as the liaison again between school, home, community, member of our crisis intervention team. I also help conduct suicide and threat assessments, and I'm the PBIS external coach. Byron Woodard, he is our 6th grade dean, and he's our internal coach for PBIS, so we work really closely together to push PBIS in our schools. And are you able to me?
Yeah, can you tell what PBIS is, just in case they don't?
Yes, okay, so PBIS is Positive Behavioral Intervention Support. Positive behavior. Oh, this is yours. It's kind of under MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, and it's a way, kind of a tier 1 intervention for us in our school to create specific community and culture. And so our phrase for our school is be there, be ready, be kind. And so we base a lot of our things off of that. It's a way to give positive reinforcement to our kids for all the great stuff that they're already doing. So they get I-tickets as rewards for doing the stuff that they should be doing, but we want to remind them, hey, that's great, thank you for being here, thank you for being ready, thanks for being kind, and it just reinforces that. And I'm also a Sources of Strength adult advisor, which is our suicide prevention program that we're rolling out this year that we're very excited about and we think our kids will be really good at because we already have an awesome community of students here that are pretty kind and awesome to one another, but we want to give them the power to create their own projects to push out to the rest of their peers to show them how great they are and how much they care about the school. Okay, that's Megan.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, sorry, Megan, I want to mention, if you didn't get one of those flyers, it just lists a few community resources that we have specifically for mental health. So if you're looking for some mental health support in your community, it lists a few. It also has all of our names and emails and titles because I know there's a lot of us. But if you want a full comprehensive list of providers, mental health providers that we recommend in the area, we can get that to you. Just come and ask me and I can send you an email.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Marshall. I'm the Student Assistance Specialist here at Harper Park Middle School. I also work at a couple other schools. Unfortunately, this isn't my only school that I work at. I also work at the Douglas School, which is our alternative high school and middle school, and I work at Heritage High School. So I'm able to connect with students sometimes in middle school and then follow them throughout their high school career too, which is kind of a cool thing. So as a student assistance specialist, my main focus is substance abuse prevention and intervention through the schools. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Virginia. So what that means is I have a master's degree in community counseling, and after that I completed a 4,000-hour residency in counseling to kind of learn some skills, be able to provide counseling services in both mental health and substance abuse to our young people. So when I work with students in the schools, I kind of follow a tiered level with them. So tier 1 level is for all students, right? So on a tier 1 level, the services I provide are substance abuse prevention presentations. And right now we do those in both 6th grade and 8th grade, and we do that through health and PE. So when they're at the time of their curriculum where they're talking about alcohol and drugs, I come in and provide the students with a great deal of information about that so they can make an educated decision about what they want to do surrounding the use of alcohol and drugs. Unfortunately, social media is such a huge part of our kids' lives right now, and a lot of times I feel like they get a lot of false information about alcohol and drugs. So my goal is to come in there and really provide them with accurate information, because you all know if you search different drugs, you'll get a ton of different information. A lot of it may not be true. So again, I want our students to have the most up-to-date and accurate information about alcohol and drugs. I also provided last year some vaping presentations to educate the students about the dangers of that, and I'm hoping to do that this year as well, because we all know that vaping is a huge issue in this county as well as all over. So the goal again is to educate the kids so that they understand what they're really doing to their bodies if they're choosing to vape. I'm also involved in restorative practices. I'm conference trained, so I'm able to provide restorative practices conferences like we heard about earlier. And I'm on a crisis team. So basically if there's a crisis throughout Loudoun County Public Schools, on certain months I'll act and I'll go out and support students at whatever school there may be a crisis occurring. So tier 1 is a little more student specific as opposed to tier 2, tier 2 is for everyone. Tier 1 is for everyone, pardon me. Tier 2 is a little more specialized, right? So on a tier 2 level, I'm able to provide substance abuse prevention groups for students. So if we get a group of students together who are all struggling with substance abuse, or if they have questions about it, I'm able to work with them in that way. And I'm also able to do COA groups. So COA means a child of an addict or alcoholic. So sometimes our students might be struggling because they have a parent or family member who struggles with addiction, and I can work with them in a group format to provide support. I'm also able to assess students for substance abuse issues themselves. So I'm able to work with them, kind of get to know them, find out if they are using alcohol and drugs, and then make recommendations if they are for services outside of the school. I'm also a Narcan trainer. So Narcan is a medication that is administered if someone is overdosing from an opiate. police officers, EMTs, all carry them with them, so I'm able to train people to administer that if needed. So Tier 3 is our most specialized services, and I'm able to work with students individually if that's more appropriate than working with them in a group. I'm also able to intervene if a violation occurs. So there are certain policies within Loudoun County Public Schools surrounding alcohol and drugs. So if a student were to come to school, and that's any school, under the influence or in possession of alcohol and drugs, the typical consequence is they'd be suspended from school for 7 days, and then they also complete our Insight program. So I'm able to assist them getting into that Insight program, and I also lead that. There's actually 7 of us throughout the county, and we all rotate leading that Insight program. So the Insight program is a 3-day program that happens at the Douglas School, and it is a way for students to gain a lot of information in a short period of time about how alcohol and drugs affect the body and the brain. And then it also gives them an opportunity to take a look at their own relationship with alcohol and drugs and see if it is a problem. If it is a problem, we're able to then connect students to outside resources to give them the support that they need. We've also this year come out with a policy surrounding vaping in school. And so the consequence this year, just so you guys are aware, if a student were to come to school and vape on school property or have any kind of vaping apparatus or paraphernalia, whatever you'd like to call it, if that happens one time, the consequence is that the student is placed in in-school restriction or ISR for 3 days. And while they're there, they receive information about vaping, the dangers of it. If it happens a second time, they're back in ISR for 3 days, and then they get referred to me. So I'm able to assess, what their needs are and get them whatever services or help they may need. If it happens a third time, then they're actually suspended from school, and they're required to complete that Insight program. So they get even more of an education about how alcohol and drugs, as well as vaping, affect their body and their brain.
What about back to Tier 1? There's no 7th grade.
I know, and I wish.
Just curious.
It's a great question.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Under
No
the
7th grade.
Tier 1, it says substance abuse prevention presentations 6th and 8th. I was just wondering, what about our 7th graders?
And my hope is that in the future, we'll be able to provide those presentations to all grade levels, and I would really love to be able to intervene in elementary school too, even before the problems start. Unfortunately, there's only 7 of us throughout the whole entire county, so we cover all the high schools and middle schools. Again, hopefully in time, we'll be able to get more of us so we can do more of that prevention piece.
Ms.
but
Marshall
right
did
now-
do 7th grade, when I was in 7th grade, you did do a lesson on vaping.
That's true.
We did do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the second question was, you said vaping presentations as needed, so how is the as needed determined?
As they ask me to.
Okay, it's
As
not
requested.
for, it's not every 6th grader gets a vaping presentation during resource or something like that.
So last year I did a presentation for all of the 7th graders and all of the 8th graders. It's kind of based on what the need is. As we're seeing, what students might benefit the most, I can certainly come out and provide that education.
Okay.
I think there's a huge need for vaping prevention because everybody in high school is doing it. Older brothers, older sisters, moms and dads, and it used to be the cigarette, but cigarettes are gross and stinky and disgusting, and they turn your hands yellow in your teeth. But vaping is cool. It smells great, and we have a lot of sleepovers at our house, and I hear the chatter of really wanting to try it and experience it and see what it's like. Not necessarily because they want to vape, but it's so cool. And so another question that I have is, other than death and the stuff you see on the news, what are some ways to make it oh, that's horrible, it's gross, it's the opposite of cool?
But just learning about what all the chemicals are that are in the vape juice is something that I share with students, as well as the fact that, the FDA is now starting to regulate all the different vape juices that are out there,
Sure.
but for a long time they didn't. So nobody was really understanding what the damage was that they're doing. Now we're starting to see that with the sicknesses and the deaths, but really helping the students see that, okay, there's a ton of these, cancer-causing chemicals, and oftentimes when the vape juice will say that there's a limited amount of nicotine or no nicotine, the it really is nicotine in there. So students are getting addicted to nicotine just like cigarettes. So again, I mean, the goal is not to really scare them, but just to provide them with the education. And especially with the 8th graders, I kind of, played a game with them in a little bit, in a way, where I kind of tested their knowledge, did some kind of myths about vaping, just to see where they were at, who believed what, and it was interesting how much different their beliefs were based on what was reality. So, you know, getting the students like to share what their thoughts are, and then providing them with the real deal information, so that again they can make an educated decision about what they want to do. And it is hard because it's very trendy right now, and you know, social media, it's everywhere, and it's cool, and we'll do tricks with the vape smoke, you know, and it's a battle. But again, the hope is the earlier we can intervene and provide that prevention, then maybe they won't even start at all.
So I am not worried about having a vapor. I don't think that's a road he's going to travel down. But are there like alternatives to vaping, like so you can still look cool and do the cool tricks, but you're not inhaling those chemicals? Or no,
there's
none of
not.
that. Okay.
People will talk about vaping water, but that doesn't work. And yeah. So there isn't an alternative.
Okay.
And I like the word she used, chatter, because I hear chatter, you know, my kids think I'm not listening to them about, well, did you hear so-and-so did this and this and this, or I went to the bathroom and I smelled that, or things like that, which is why I asked, why is it as needed? Because I think it's more than as needed.
It's definitely
needed.
Most definitely. And the reason why I said as needed is because it's not something that we're mandated to do. We are mandated to do the 6th and 8th grade presentations. This is just kind of something extra that, seeing the need in the community and in the county, we're trying to provide to the best of our
I mean,
ability.
there are even commercials on TV about juuling and, you know, how it's better than cigarettes and that kind of stuff, and so
And we
that
do-
worries me.
Me too, for sure. We do provide information about vaping in the 6th and 8th grade substance use prevention presentations, so they do get it in that way too. But again,
I am a 7th grader.
oh,
Yes, I'm
so
sorry.
that is the plan though, for me to come out. We just need to schedule it and provide that. And if there's a need for parents, I can certainly provide some education through possibly a parent coffee here in the future about it for all the parents in the community.
The suspensions and such, that applies to programs that are outside of the school building, correct, that are school things. So if there is
Oh, yes. If they're at a sporting event
Right.
or a field trip, same policy applies on the school bus. Any Loudoun County Public School property or school sanctioned activity. Thank you guys.
Good morning. I'll try to keep mine short and sweet here. I only have one slide, so. My name's Josh. I'm the school resource officer here at Harper Park Middle. Got 6.5 years of law enforcement. I was previously with the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office. 3 of those years were on regular patrol on the western end of the county. 3.5 of those years were spent between the Tactical Enforcement Unit, gang unit, where I specialize in juvenile gang members, specifically MS-13 and 18th Street gang members, which led me to be the SRO at Parkview High School. So I was at Parkview for just over 3 years. Chief Brown came to Leesburg, and he was my captain over there, and so I followed him over to Leesburg. So I'm here. I've been with Leesburg for just over a year now, about 1.5 years. I was on patrol, and a spot opened up over here, and I snatched it. I thoroughly enjoy being around kids. I've got 2 kids of my own. I'm a citizen here in the town of Leesburg. I've lived here for 12 years. My wife, my son is in 2nd grade. My daughter's in preschool. So I'm here. I'm an open book. If you guys need anything, I don't know if my email's up here, but I have a stack of cards in the front desk with my email. If you guys ever need to reach out to me, hit me up. Email is probably the easiest way. I've given my work cell phone out. If you see something going on in your community, let me know, and I can pass that information on to the community resource officers as well. Bus issues, just any type of questions you might have. Let me know. I am certified as a crisis intervention trainer, So, I'm on the mental health teams here. I typically don't try to get involved with a lot of stuff unless they absolutely need me to, unless there's a criminal matter involved. I don't try digging into people's business and, parents asking why the cops are involved. So unless you want to ask me questions, or unless a staff member or administrator comes to me and says, hey, let me bounce some ideas off of you, that's the only way that I really get involved. Other than that, I'm constantly walking around, popping my head into rooms, talking to kids. Most of these kids are like my height or taller, so I fit in pretty well. The joke is that I'm a 5th grader trapped in a 30-year-old body. And so I'm just to ease your all's minds, I'm usually here every day about 7:45, so I'm usually about 15 minutes early. If you can't tell, I'm a little wired. It's just my personality. So I do a lot of walking, I check perimeters, I go over to Tolbert, check their place, walk around all day long. I'll drive around the neighborhoods that are close by, just to see if there's anything weird going on. And so I'm just extremely proactive. So if you guys need anything, I don't know if I'm missing anything. Yeah, I think I covered everything. So if you guys need anything, let me know. I'm here for you, and I'm here for your kids. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe or what the threat assessment is for Loudoun County Public Schools? Like if there was an issue
Right.
in the school, what is the process?
So if there was an active threat towards this school, is that what you're saying? Like kind of what we've dealt with Briar Woods and all those other schools. So essentially, obviously we're the town of Leesburg, but Loudoun County Sheriff's Office has jurisdiction over all of the county. So if Harper Park someone were to see a social media post that says, hey, this is going to go down at Harper Park tomorrow morning, obviously our command staff would be involved, our detectives would be involved, I would be involved, but we would also bring the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office in because they have more resources than we do. It's just a fact of the matter. Their detectives would work with our detectives. A lot of computer forensics would be involved in that, whereas you would geotag the post, try to figure out where it came from. There's a lot that goes in. Search warrants to try to figure out what tower it's pinging off of, that type of stuff. So they would narrow it down, and that's how they narrowed down the threats that were going on. I think it was a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, with the local high schools. And so we work collectively with the sheriff's office, but essentially, we would have extra patrols here. So not only myself, but we would have other officers patrolling the neighborhoods before school even started. We have an officer that begins the day at 6 o'clock in the morning, and our other officers begin at 7. It kind of overlaps from our midnight shift. So those guys would be constantly in the area, not just at this school, but at other schools, because we all know that this could be a fake threat here to draw the attention, and then, God forbid, something happened at another school. So we definitely take it super serious, as well as any type of threat that we may hear over the night from like a gaggle report. I mean, we investigate it along with safety and security. Our best interest is the student, and we just don't want anything to happen to our kids, right? And so that's why we take it so serious. I take it serious. I was up last night at getting texted at 8:30 from Loudoun Safety and Security about a gaggle report that we were investigating and just checking on the student and making sure everything was okay. So
we're actually having a parent copy just about that on October 11th.
Yep.
About all these procedures, about everything that he and his department go through for things like that to keep the kids safe, as well as Loudoun County Public Schools. So we're going to kind of combine all that and give you all of the details on that, because we know that's on everyone's
Absolutely.
minds right now. So we're going to give him the whole copy to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's October 11th?
Yes, ma'am.
11th, yeah.
All right.
So are you guys going to sit down with the students and say, hey, this is our procedures, just to comfort them, just be like, hey, we're taking it seriously, and we wouldn't let you come to school if there was a goal.
right, I've actually had students come up to me and just kind of ask me that, and I just let them know this is what we do. If you see other police around, it's just for your safety. A lot of times, guys just come and hang out because I'm that kind of guy. Everybody likes to be around me, and like I'll have a parent say, "Is everything okay?" And we're just outside, kind of shooting, And for me, presence is key. We have one officer that likes to hit the elementary schools and literally just park in front of the school, 10, 15, 20 minutes, just as a presence, so that people driving by, the community can see that we're actively taking care of our schools and our students. But but yeah, we definitely have the opportunity to let kids know. Mr. O'Rourke came on our announcements and actually explained what was going on, let them know that I was involved and that if you see me around more, that's a good thing. So that, I get it. The anxiety is up for some of these kids when they hear the chatter going on, and it can be scary. So it can be scary for a teacher rolling into school.
So from the school standpoint, again, we'll go into detail about it, but we're given directive on what we can and cannot announce to the kids. So on that particular day, Mr. O'Rourke was given a script that he
Yeah.
had to say, because although some kids would appreciate it, other kids would not. It
Right.
would send some kids into a tailspin.
And I did have one of
that
those
weren't
students
even
come
aware
with this.
that there were threats being made. So on that particular day, he made a statement, and then we made sure all the kids knew that the counselors were available, the Oasis was open, and we had kids coming through just to breathe, relax, and see that everything was okay, and then they would go back to class. But there's kind of a, like, Wade Byard's office calls and says, this is what you're saying, this is what we're saying to the public. Because they're still doing work, they're still trying to figure out what's going on. So, yeah, we definitely do our best to calm and comfort them, but we're limited on a school-wide basis as to what we say. Individually with a kid, we can assess developmentally where they are and what they're asking and what we can answer for them, but it is not necessarily a blanket, this is what the cops are doing right now, everybody.
Well, I was just saying procedure-wise, just in any threat, not specifically for this one, but I'm just saying, like a one-time sit-down with them saying, hey, if this happens, this is how we treat it, this is how we investigate it, we're taking this seriously,
I can't say that we've done that collectively with
I think it's on a
all
case by
students.
case.
Yeah, it's kind of a case-by-case thing. Like I said, I probably had a handful of kids come up before school and just kind of ask me about it. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm sure that you are doing a great job, but aside from you, like a few weeks ago, my son was like, Mom, I just don't want to go. And I completely understand that. Why would I send my son when there's a potential? Like, because it happens. It's not like, it's probably not going to happen. It happens. And we don't want it to happen here, but it does. So, do we have like barricades for rooms, and we've done shooter drills, and I think that's something that needs to be
Right.
done already.
We've already conducted lockdown drills, and the good thing about those drills is that we find errors, and that's why we do that. We've already been talking about the PA system with our safety and security. That it needs to be located in different places so everybody can hear it if there is a lockdown drill, so that the school's not in lockdown and then there's one random gym class
And what
that's
happens
just
if you're in the bathroom
going out.
or
So I do a sweep along with the administration in the hallways, and if there's any student that's in the bathroom, we can take them to the nearest classroom, I unlock it and just push them in there, and they're there. And I try to grab their name if I can. If it's an active situation, as long as that kid's safe, that's my main job. If he is in a locked room, they have their procedure there. They draw a piece of cardboard over the window so nobody can look in there, and it's just deadly quiet. We lock all the doors, the metal doors, the doubles that go into each house, and so we do a walkthrough, make sure everything's good to go.
So is there a barricade that I don't know how bulletproof the doors are?
There's no barrier. It's just what you see is what you get there.
Sure.
I know safety and security is coming up with a plan. If you go to our local high schools, you have 2 sets of doors. You have to go in. They're trying to implement that in our.
I just mean
other
for each
schools as
individual
well.
classroom.
So no, ma'am. There's no barrier or bulletproof doors.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you all instituted evacuation drills related to school security yet?
Yes, yeah, we practice our evacuation. We in regards to like an active shooter or to that thing. With the active shooter, a lot of times what we do is we hold them in where they are. That's that lockdown drill. And so at Parkview, I was involved in an active lockdown drill where we had a situation where, unfortunately, I don't know if you all were familiar with this, where the student was unfortunately shot at the bus stop, and that was a gang shooting. I responded to that scene, and we locked down Parkview High School. Nobody in, nobody out, kids in rooms, and so I probably have firsthand knowledge more than any of the SROs here because I was actively involved in that, and it's a very, very stressful situation. I mean, you have some students that don't handle the anxiety well, and then you have a teacher that's like, what do we do with a student that's kind of freaking out right now when we're on lockdown? And so the admin had to, you know, you just deal with it the best way you can. It's just like, you know, if you're in war and you're dealt a bad hand, you do make the best of the situation, and that's what we tried to do there. But we had nobody in, nobody out. We had the school surrounded with, you know, extra law enforcement presence, you know, that type of thing. So if a student is out on the track and there's a lockdown drill, we do get over the radio and let them know, go to Tolbert, go to the back of Tolbert, just run as fast as you can. We don't want them coming back into a hot area.
Sure.
And so we are basically just telling them to
But there
go.
may be a need to evacuate a hot area.
Absolutely, absolutely there is. And so we have landing zones, we have different spots for where the police department sets up a command post, essentially.
Right.
And so one of those is going to be back here at the Clarion Inn. Just getting away, we've got the tree line, and so we could push kids that way if there's a command center. And so that's not necessarily my call, that's the big wigs up top. That would basically say, hey, here's where this is going to be. Let's start pushing that out to parents. Here's where the parents are going to hang out until we can figure out what's going on. So, yes, ma'am.
My daughter was telling me about the last drill you guys did for shooting, but then the fire alarm went off. How do you handle that? Like, what's the...
I don't remember the fire alarm going off.
They are told that if a fire
Yep.
alarm goes off, they are to not move, but we have never done that during the lockdown. We've never actually turned the
I
fire
think
alarm.
it was accidental or something.
The last lockdown we did was, we knew it was going to happen, but it was spontaneous for students. So I was in house C, and there were 3 students at their lockers. And I just happened to roll around the corner, and I saw them, and I basically just popped them into the dean's office and had them sitting there, and they were flawless. Like, they did exactly what I asked them to do. It wasn't any questions asked. They knew exactly where to go. So those kids, they nailed it. And so the ones that we've done here, our kids have been phenomenal with it.
So if there is a fire alarm that goes off during one of those, they know to stay.
They would notice. Well, the teachers would know to stay too,
Okay.
and just say hang tight, because that could be one of those decoys that, like I said, God forbid, it's like worst case scenario. I hate even like entertaining it,
it's really
but
small.
but yeah, exactly. So if they call a lockdown drill and there's an individual in here that pulls the alarm, they may think that that's a trigger to get them out, and then we got bigger issues. But our teachers are aware to just keep them in place. Yes, sir.
So are we going to metal detectors at the doors to make sure?
Not that I'm aware of. No,
I mean, you
sir.
can have a plastic gun, so,
No.
I mean, if someone wants to do that.
It's so emotional. I mean, my kids even tell me kids are crying for tornado drills or whatever. It's just out of place. But I remember at a PTA meeting a couple of years ago, Beth Robinson, the former principal, mentioned that that's what they were going to do, is a fire drill at the same time as a lockdown, because that is a decoy
Right.
of the bad. And
Yep.
just, how are we going to get these kids? So
You
things
can run.
can happen at the grocery store, at a restaurant, and I just,
Yeah.
and I love your presence. I see you at Heritage High School. I see
Right.
you everywhere, and that gives me a comfort that you are someone that's approachable, that kids can see you, that you're approachable, that you're just not here for the bad.
Well, I take a lot of pride in my job, even
Yes, I
if I'm not
appreciate
here.
that.
And so, you know, like I said, I have kids that are in these schools too. And even if they weren't in the schools, I get it. Like, I get the anxiety in the world that we live in nowadays. It stinks that it's come to this, but, you know, that's where we're at, and we have to adapt, and we have to, you know, all work together. That's the biggest thing, is working together. And that's why I feel like being so approachable is a good thing, so that if parents do have questions, like, let's just sit down and talk about it. Let's figure it out.
And that's
So,
why we're gonna set aside a lot of time next time for this one subject. Because there's obviously, I'm glad you guys have so many questions, because we were kind of talking about what we could share, but you guys are gonna help us with that.
and there's
So,
there's going to be a social media side to that as well
yeah,
that I'll
yeah,
present
we'll
about.
talk about safety online too.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
awesome.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our nurse can't come out of the clinic, but she's part of our team. So Leslie's
I'm
going
Leslie
to-
Cole, and I'm actually not the nurse, but I am the 8th grade counselor. but I'm very good friends with Miss Thompson, and we've known each other for as long as we've both worked here, which is a very, very long time. So I'm going to tell you a few little things about her. She was an ICU nurse for 12 years. She started as school nurse, as a sub-nurse for 5 years, and then has been at Harper Park for about 19 years, and she does love her job. She is a very, very busy lady. She's a constant source of referrals to the team. We work hand in hand with her, the counselors, with certain students, because a lot of the physical impacts the emotional and vice versa. So we work a lot together. And let's see, so she is, she's great, and she tracks students. Like if they're coming too often to see her, that's a red flag, and she'll let us know. Or if she thinks something is claimed as physical, but she thinks there's more emotional pieces as part of that, she'll let us know. And she's open to all parent feedback, questions, concerns. She will call you back if you call her. Any kind of illnesses or medication issues or health issues, it's good to contact her because she works hand in hand with everybody and helps keep everybody here safe and healthy. So anyway, that's it. Bye.
One other thing about Ms. Thompson and all of the school nurses, at least in middle school, I'm not sure, I'm assuming they do this in elementary too, they now have codes they enter into the system. So we have a student information system that we all use that indicates that a child has been to the clinic for a possible mental health need. So they're displaying signs of anxiety, or they've asked, I really need to go see my counselor. So they're tracking that data now, so we can look at patterns, we can look at where there's bigger needs at different schools. So I think that's kind of cool. That just came to my attention this year, so we coordinated with her on that, and she is going to she presents that data to our monthly Unified Mental Health Team meetings, so we can, as a school, can look at where the issues are. One other thing I wanted to talk about very briefly is a program we have called The Park here, and it stands for Practicing Awareness, Reflection, and Kindness. The Park is a set of 2 rooms in the back of the building that are set up kind of like, I don't know if anybody's came to the Oasis last time, but it's a comfortable room. It's also a classroom setting, and it is for students who receive special education services, but it is a place for them to de-escalate if they're in a classroom setting and they are having an issue, some sort of emotional issue, whether they're getting angry or they're frustrated, or they just aren't able to stay in that room, and we don't want them to disrupt the rest of the class. They can go to the park where there are 2 teachers and 2 teaching assistants that are experienced in kids with emotional disabilities, and they help them de-escalate, reflect on what was going on, and hopefully get them back into class as quickly as possible. So the woman who runs it is Miss Frost. She has many years of experience. She's worked in residential centers with kids with emotional issues. She's awesome. She's very, very patient, very, very kind. The kids like going there. The kids can self-refer, saying, I'm feeling like I need to go take a break, or I'm getting really mad right now, I need to go to the park. Or a teacher might recognize that someone's starting to get ramped up a little bit, and they can say, you need to go to the park. So it's a great program. Most schools have them. Every year we're improving ours here. In fact, we expanded the space into double this year. So it's great for our kids that are receiving special education services. And the same thing can happen in the Oasis. And if you didn't come last week, come see it after we're done here. Any student in the building can use the Oasis for that reason, for relaxation, just a few minutes to calm down. If they need to talk, they can talk. If they just need to chill, they can chill. So we have several spaces for kids to relax and regroup. Mary Beth? And last but not least, but the woman who ties it all together for us. Hold on, did you have a question?
It's just, sorry, you probably said it and I somehow missed it. So is the park different from the Oasis?
Yeah, so the park is specific for kids receiving special education services.
So it's like the Oasis, but...
Yeah, the Oasis is for any child that needs it. Now, my kids on my caseload are kids receiving special education services, so they may come to me, because I live in the Oasis, for counseling.
Okay.
Any kid can come to the Oasis for a break or just to...
Where is the park?
It's in the back. It's 2 classrooms that are actually connected by a door. So it's kind of back there by 6th grade. It's in that hallway that crosses. And this is Mrs. Woodford, one of our assistants.
Good morning. So I support the UMHT as the administrator on that team. Harper Park is an MTSS school, which means we have a multi-tiered systems of support here. So we have lots of teams. We have our PBIS team, we have our interdisciplinary teams at the grade level, we have child study teams, we have IEP teams, we have 504 teams, we have our attendance student support team, we have our pupil services student support team. So we have a lot of things going on, and what we are working towards this year, we want to move from alignment of those programs into integration of the programs. So we really want to take a look at all of the teams that we run in this building, how we're using our resources, and how we can best service kids by overlapping those resources. To go from alignment to integration is our goal this year. So as far as the UMHT, I attend their meetings, and basically I'm a support person. And really I do believe wholly as an administrator in a school building, if you are not a student or a teacher, you are a support person. It doesn't matter what your job is, you are there to support the students and the teachers here in this building to do the things we need to do to make them successful. So I am supporting this team, I attend their meetings. If they need resources, they can look to me and say, hey, can we do that? Can we have time? Can we have rooms? Can we have space? I just assist when they're strategizing as to whether or not, is that viable? Look at the calendar, what else is going on? What's coming up for the students? Do we have too much out there? Do we have not enough? Help them implement. We go through an evaluation process with the Pupil Services Department, and I sit in on that a couple of times a year. We take a look at our functionality of the group and where we've been and where we need to go. If we feel like we need professional development, whether it's for that team or there's something we want to push out like restorative practices or our morning circles, then we take a look at, well, how can we get staff available to get them the professional development or learning that they might need to best support what we're doing to better our UMHT. How do we get our students involved, bring them on board, and then how do we do our family outreach? And so I'm just the person sitting there in that meeting, and they're saying, hey, can we do this? And then I'm looking at all the resources and the things that we have available to us and trying to make it all work together and reach out to these other groups. So that's my role with UMHT and supporting this group, who they are fabulous and doing an awesome job here.
And Ms. Woodford also is the person in our building who's the liaison with safety and security. They had a lot of questions about the safety and security, so I told them on the 11th we're going to cover.
Okay.
But she's our school person, like Josh is our police person, so they kind of coordinate. So they'll be able to answer questions and kind of share what we do in that regard.
And we get a lot of support, and I know we're having another meeting about that, but I am happy to report in the last year we've had a lot of enhanced security to our building as a structure. We have a new camera system, we have a new alarm system, we have a new badge swipe system. We have a lot of things that we have asked for and were given to us last year in the spring and over the summer. So we feel very lucky for that.
That's basically it for us sharing with you all. We can definitely take more questions, or if you want to talk to individual members of the team, everyone's kind of hanging around, except Ms. Blevins had to go to a meeting. But
I have an off-topic question. Here, is anybody leaving school on Fridays for the Fridays for Future? Have you heard of that? Okay.
Not that I've heard. Have you guys, Leslie, Jude? Do you know of anyone leaving school on Fridays for the Fridays of Future? I haven't heard that either.
Okay.
What is that?
It's not really striking climate change, but it's kind of like protesting for people to do things for climate change. We're very environmentally friendly, earth conscious at our house, and so honestly I've contemplated it, but also I don't think it's the best idea. So from our standpoint, we're thinking of like after school planting trees, or picking up aluminum cans and recycling them, instead of skipping
we have an
school.
environmental club that will start soon. Miss Karuna Ratna, one of our science teacher, heads that up. She's awesome.
And I also would love, I pick my son up and drop him off because we don't live in the zone, and we live 4 miles from a landfill. I would love to take recycling paper to the landfill. I just need the email, and I'm really better face-to-face chatting it up. So
probably Mary Beth would be the best contact to see how that could happen.
Sure.
But Miss Karuna Ratna is environmentally all over it, and
Sure.
she has a club, and kids do that. They go out and they clean up, and they take different hikes, and they clean up different places around locally.
Okay.
So she might be a good person to link up with too.
Mary Beth.
Mary Beth, but Miss Karuna Rutna is one of our science teachers who runs the club. But
Okay.
Mary Beth Woodford would be the person to ask about the recycling to the landfill.
Hi.
Hi.
I really appreciate all of this mental health support that you're providing to our students. My question is, when I go to Heritage, how does it translate over to Heritage?
They have the
Like,
exact
I love
same
the
folks,
Oasis,
yeah.
I love SRO, I think you all are great, but when I go to high school, then does it kind of drop off?
No,
or-
they're all the same folks are there, so they have the same team, if not even bigger. There's even more counselors. It looks different.
Yeah.
The needs are different as far as those counselors have. They have to keep track of graduation requirements and things
Right.
like that as well.
Right.
We have enjoyed not having to do that.
Very
But they're fully staffed psychologists, social worker, SRO. Megan is actually the student assistant specialist for them as well.
Right.
And then, like I said, the fully staffed counseling department. So it's all there. No, they don't necessarily have an Oasis. Most
Right.
schools don't. There's no other middle school
I
that
love
does.
that you
And
have
there's
that
one,
here.
I think Valley has one way out in the west. But that's a logistics and space issue, you know. I think everyone would love to have one. We really lucked out in the timing of ours when we ripped out the computer labs, when all the kids got devices. So we got a computer lab. But yes, the supports are there. Reach out to the counselor, social worker, psychologist, Megan. They have directors of counseling there too, who kind of oversee that whole thing. So she might be a good place to start in the cycles. But yeah, and they're great. They're a great team. I love the counselors at Heritage. They're involved and fun, and the kids like them, and parents like them.
This actually goes along with this question. Do you guys work with that counseling team, especially for kids who do receive special services and
Yep.
managing all of that?
Yes. So-
And another just quick thing while we were talking about the whole school safety thing, kids who do receive special services who might not be as aware of that big horrible thing out there.
Mhm.
How do you manage that with them?
Well,
Because
that-
I don't think my son has a clue.
Right, which is why we don't blanket open this up to all the kids, because kids are, even without special needs, are on such a big spectrum developmentally in middle school. We've got 10-year-olds and we've got 15-year-olds in the same building. So we have to be very careful about what we announce to the kids, and having an assembly just to say, this is what we do when there's an active shooter. We would never do that, so we have to. And the kids, like, I know your son is with, the teachers know, of course, so if there were some sort of panic situation, they would need to know how to address him and how to help him in that situation. So we just have to be cautious about what we say blanket, and then individually we work with kids. Like Miss Weatherford and I are working with a student who is deathly afraid of the fire alarm and hasn't participated in a fire drill in years. And so we are working strategically to slowly move him towards doing that by the end of this year. Just by talking and walking, just by looking at the fire drill, just by listening to one far away, things like that. So we have lots of different tools that we can use for that. Yes, we do meet with the Heritage counselors. So 8th grade going to 9th grade, we all sit and talk about the social emotional needs. The transition to IEPs for kids who have special needs, they of course are here. I like to attend as many of those as I can, especially if there's a social emotional need involved in that one. And we also do the same with the 5th grade counselors when the 6th graders are coming in. We meet with each one of them to get any pertinent background information that we may need to know for them. Any other questions?
I just have a question. I know there's so much mental, and now you have the park and Oasis, but I'm wondering, like, what is it that's causing all this? And
There's no one answer
I
for
know
that.
there isn't, and like this happened, and it just created stress on my daughter, and I was like, I don't care, knock it out, give me that kid's name, and I'll call the mother. Because the kid texted my daughter at 10:30 at night, we turned everything off at 10, and she didn't get till 7 in the morning, and she goes, she's fighting me and still mad at me because she ended up failing that test because I couldn't help her. She sent me a text, it's all your fault because you turned off my internet. I was like, whoa, back up. You are not, you know what, I'll call your mom. Like blaming, so she was blaming me, the girl, was blaming my daughter, she got a bad grade at 10:30 the night before the test. And so I'm just, I said, she would never have said that to your face if it wasn't over the device.
Sure.
And that's
And
where.
good on you for not letting her have the device all night.
And then, right. And I'm like, she shouldn't be up at 10:30. You know,
She shouldn't.
Right. But that, you know, I think it's a combination.
It's
of-
a lot.
It's,
There's a lot.
it's the device, it's staying, these kids need to be in bed. You know, it's so hard.
Yeah, the biggest factor that's huge disparity between child to child to child is that what goes on at home.
Yeah.
And we unfortunately can't control it. We have them from 8 to 3:30, and then we send them back to from whence they came. And unfortunately, sometimes what we worked on during the day gets completely undone, and we start back over the next day. So I think there's a million things that are going on with causing kids to have different feelings
But as you
today.
said, starts at home and ends at, you know,
But
starts.
that's one thing that's really important to us is having meetings like this with you guys and trying to answer questions and trying to be open book and trying to have two-way communication. Because if there's one parent that is struggling and doesn't know what to do about the phone and doesn't know how to handle that, then we want to help them so we can turn that around so that child does have the stability and the bedtime and not devices all night long and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be a constant forever and ever.
Then she's like, I need it because I need to set my alarm. I was like, oh, I have no problem waking you up. Don't worry about that. You will catch
My
it.
daughter has a $3 alarm clock from Target that we picked out together. Anything else? Okay, feel free to mingle and ask questions if you need to. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I heard you say your son has the symptoms as a counselor. She's on vacation. She's amazing. Is she good? I haven't met her yet.